thank you, Eric, for being with us. I am very excited and honored to have Eric here with us, with the Architecting Change community. So, Eric, before we start, tell us about you very quick. Just how is your background? How do you start with the enterprise architecture practice? So tell us a little bit about you. I know that you are an author, you are a professor, you are a speaker. So, but before we start, please tell us more about you.
Yes, thanks, Rodrigo, for the invitation. Of course, it's my pleasure to be here with you. So, my name is Eric Jager. I am the author of 2 books, Getting Started with Enterprise Architecture and Mastering the TOGAF Standard. I'm this certified master architect, TOGAF practitioner, Archimate practitioner. So I have this, I think, about 20 years of experience in the field of practicing enterprise architecture. I worked for a number of organizations throughout my career, ranging from government agencies to healthcare institutions. I also lecture on architecture at the Eindhoven University of Technology, as you mentioned. I speak at some conferences and other types of events. I like to focus on this practical and pragmatic application of enterprise architecture. Now, if I'm looking back at my career, pursuing this career in enterprise architecture wasn't really a deliberate choice. So rather it was this natural process that unfolded. And I think that throughout the years, I think I became interested in how aspects of an organization connected on a larger scale, such as business operations and strategy. So having worked for these various organizations over the years, I've actually seen up close how enterprise architecture is applied in practice. And there is this gap between theory and practice. And that became apparent to me. So I started investigating the reason behind this discrepancy. And I think I concluded that most organizations lacked, or even today still lack, this clear understanding of how to begin working with architecture, with enterprise architecture. And some of these organizations, at least if you look at Europe, they try to apply the theory from frameworks such as the TOGAF standard comprehensively and on as large a scale as possible. And I think that is where most organizations go wrong. So seeing this is as the main reason why architecture initiatives fail, I wrote this book presenting an approach that organizations can actually use to start working with architecture. And I think and I hope that the book helps organizations to focus on building this solid foundation first. So drawing from my years of practical experience, I created the Enterprise Architecture Implementation Wheel, or the EA Wheel, which is an approach for implementing enterprise architecture that can be used by both novice and experienced architects.
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing, Eric. And I believe we share the same passion about this practice. And thank you for being with us. Thank you for having the time to speak with the architecture change community. We are very passionate here in Mexico about this practice. So, Eric, tell us more about how your book came to be. I love it. I read it, at least I have been reading your book. It's amazing. And the thing that I loved, it's the practical and pragmatical way you describe enterprise architecture. I believe one of the problems that we have, at least here in Mexico, within companies, is that let's say they confuse the role of enterprise architects with solution architects, and the practice is more related to the strategic role instead of the technical role. So how do you came to be to create this amazing book?
Yeah, I think that it all started with maybe some more about the background that I have. I've been practicing architecture for 2 decades, and I really like or enjoy writing about the profession, things that I encounter in my daily practice or some challenges that I experience when practicing the profession. So I am a blogger I have been a blogger for a few years. And I'm writing about all these experiences that I have, certain topics. And like I mentioned in my introduction, I thought it would be nice to write something about this gap that I noticed between the theory on the one hand and practicing architecture on the other in a practical and pragmatic way. So I started writing a blog about this gap and how to overcome the gap. And I actually kept on writing and writing. So the blog extended quite rapidly. And it was actually my wife that jokingly said to me that it looked like I was writing a book instead of a blog. And then I thought, well, maybe that's not such a bad idea at all. So I started to look at this blog initially from a book perspective and try to write it, to try to provide people, the readers of the book, with something tangible that they could actually use from this very practical perspective. And finally, I found this publisher who was willing to publish the book. And yeah, I must say that it's been quite a journey. It's been an amazing journey. The book is doing really good, really great. Get a lot of positive reviews from people. So it definitely exceeded all the expectations that I had.
Yeah, and I believe it has been very well received also here in Mexico. I know a few folks that are reading your book, and they are commenting about the EA wheel. So thank you and congratulations, Eric, for your book. I know that you have released another book. It's a master the TOGAF framework, mastering the TOGAF framework. So how let's get started. How can you explain the EA implementation wheel? And how can the EA implementation wheel help us, let's say, us as a practitioners implement the practice in our organizations?
Yeah, I think that the EA wheel is this method, a really practical and pragmatic approach to developing this fundamental enterprise architecture, right? So it is based on the TOGAF standard, but the method then differs from that framework in that it adapts TOGAF structure and flow, but it reorganizes its content into 4 easy to understand stages. So there are document, define, execute, and control. And each stage is then broken down into a number of steps and key focus areas which contain actionable artifacts. And I think that this generalized idea offers a streamlined entry point for organizations that actually want to start working with enterprise architecture. So I think that the straightforward description of the steps within the method ensures this really accessible approach to enterprise architecture. And the simplicity with which actions and outcomes are described and explained in the method makes it, I think, applicable to almost any situation or scenario, or a small company or large company. Now, rather than aiming for exhaustive coverage, like the TOGAF standard does, the EA wheel provides this scalable foundation that organizations can actually build upon as they mature. So it establishes a solid basis, if you will, for effectively adopting and applying the core principles of the TOGAF standard. Now, it is primarily designed for early career architects and organizations that are new to working with architecture. So the method then really emphasizes clarity and usability. So it includes this selection of tailored catalogs, diagrams, maps, matrices, and these are essential deliverables that make fundamental architecture easier to understand and to implement. And I think that the enterprise architecture implementation wheel can be thought of as this simplified, tailored, customized, if you will, version of the TOGAF standard, providing this approach that is easy to understand, easy to apply, and helps you to create this fundamental enterprise architecture.
Got it. And I believe, Eric, one of the issues here, at least what we have here in Mexico, is how can you explain the benefits of having the enterprise architecture practice in the organizations to the top level management. So usually when you are doing enterprise architecture, you confuse that it's more strategic rather than technical, right? But how can you sell or explain the benefits of having this kind of practice within organizations to top level management? I believe that that's one of the key issues we have here in Mexico because at the end, this kind of projects takes at least 2 to 3 years to provide some benefits to the organizations.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that first off, enterprise architecture is, of course, not a profession that can be measured by outcomes, such as the number of architecture artifacts that are delivered each quarter, or at least it shouldn't, right? So when when companies talk about doing enterprise architecture, it can sound abstract until you look at what actually starts to move or shift on the ground level. So the advantages, they tend to show up less flashy breakthroughs and more of a kind of quiet alignment that gradually changes how the whole organization moves. So for example, you can see the benefits of enterprise architecture when decisions stop being guesswork. So business leaders gain this clearer picture of how capabilities, processes, data and technology, how it all fits together instead of debating in the dark. They can see the consequences of choices, what a change will break or what it will simplify, and of course where it will pay off. Now, another, I believe, notable benefit is that change becomes less painful. Now, without enterprise architecture, if you introduce a new capability, it almost feels like you're performing surgery without imaging. But with it, teams will actually know where the nerves are. So where the dependencies are, where the integrations are, how the data flows. So major initiatives will land with fewer surprises and also with lower risk. And I think that enterprise architecture also tends to create, how do you say, a shared narrative between business on the one hand and IT on the other. So it's like saying, here's where we're heading, here's how your capabilities evolve, and here's what needs to change next. So that alignment reduces the classic, oh, that's a beautiful system, but it has a useless outcome. So when you know where your information lives and how your systems interact, how to respond to audits, to breaches, or even regulatory changes, that becomes much less of a fire drill. So it's more like laying the groundwork, the foundation, that this organization can use in the daily practice to do things more in a coherent and structured way.
Yeah. Totally agree, Eric. At the end, the promise of the practice is to provide visibility to the organization, to take better decisions, right? To take advantage of the investments in technology and supports the strategy of the business to keep growing the business of make more efficiencies or so forth, right?
Exactly. So, it provides this kind of clarity for decision making. It's like I said, there's no more guessing in the dark or debating in the dark. You can really base your decisions on solid information, and that really helps making substantiated decisions.
Yeah. And Eric, what are your thoughts about? There's a lot of discussion around you need to do the assist first. You need to document your technology assets in the company before creating a future state, right? So the promise of the enterprise architecture practice is to connect a strategy with execution, right? At the end. But how, in your experience, how a practitioner, what will be the best way for a practitioner to start doing architecture, enterprise architecture, to start documenting the as-is, and then move to the future state, or jump directly to the future state?
I think that largely depends on the size of the organization, the time frame that you're operating in. So there are a lot of factors that will have some say in how to approach the architecture challenge that lays ahead. So in general, there is of course this global outline of how to approach situations and which order to follow. But I believe that you should always look at situations from this practical and pragmatic point of view, and then select those parts of the theoretical approach that will actually help you or your organization move forward. So I don't think that we should really stick or cling to a fixed set of a theoretical approach, but rather look at what will work for the organization or the architecture challenge that lies ahead, and use those steps to help the organization realize their desired outcome or their goal or strategy or whatever. So I don't think we should focus first on creating target state, then as is, or the other way around. Of course, it's good to have an idea of how your current state or as is state looks like in order to be able to recognize what needs to change to realize your goal. But you can also use this top-down approach, start with the target state, where you want to go, and then work backwards, discovering how your current state looks like. So there is no one single perfect way to approach these situations.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, all depends on the context and the constraints of the different organization and the strategy, right? So it depends on the strategy of the organization. So Eric, in your experience, what will be the main challenge to communicate the value of the value proposition to executives or even boards? I believe one of the issues, or maybe we can see it as an opportunity, is to communicate the benefits and the value proposition to the boards. What's your experience in that area, Eric?
Yeah. Well, I think that enterprise architecture delivers several business-facing benefits when it's practiced well.
Yeah.
And organizations typically gain a far better alignment between, let's say, the long-term strategy and the technology investments required to support those long-term strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, instead of making decisions in isolation, they gain this unified view of their capabilities, processes, information systems, etc., which reduces duplication, which lowers operating costs, and this visibility also speeds up change because teams understand dependencies and they can evolve their environment, if you will, with fewer surprises. Now, EA also improves most of the time risk management as well, since it highlights these fragile processes or security gaps and technical debt before they grow into costly failures. So in the end, businesses see increased agility, even a more predictable project outcomes, and clear justification of where their money goes and also why. That's the theory of the added value of working with enterprise architecture. Now, communicating this value to executives or to boards, that is really difficult because EA work can appear abstract and leaders may not immediately see the connection between architecture models and financial performance, for example.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if a past EA efforts in the organizations have been, let's say, slow or overly theoretical, then stakeholders may carry skepticism that EA creates delay rather than clarity.
Mm-hmm.
And in addition, EA benefits are frequently a long-term and at enterprise level, which make them really hard to quantify in short-term metrics or tie them directly to a single initiative's return of investment. So executives tend to prioritize outcomes not frameworks. So if the EA message is framed around methods and artifacts rather than business impact, it will fail to resonate.
Yeah.
And therefore, I think that EA should not be measured by the number of architectural artifacts that they produce. I think that overcoming the issues required of translating architectural insights into a language of risk, cost, growth, and even speed. So focusing less on the diagrams and governance and more on how EA actually removes obstacles that leaders care about. I think that will show them the added value of enterprise architecture. But it is something that will definitely take a long time. And that's why it's important to, as they say, celebrate each win that you generate within or with enterprise architecture. Show them the benefits by demonstrating the value each project has successfully demonstrated.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree. And we should be talking more about the business language, the business metrics. And I see the enterprise architect as the connector, right? So it connects different areas. It connects the strategy with the execution. And talking about the execution, Eric, I love the way you describe it in your book. There are different levels that you can provide value with the enterprise architecture. One it's a strategic level, another one it's a portfolio level, another one it's a project level, or even a solution delivery level. So what's your experience on that?
Yeah, I think that when businesses or organizations implement an enterprise architecture practice effectively, they can expect several benefits that will materialize across operational performance, strategic execution, and technology value. So the EA helps organizations reduce duplication by rationalizing applications, by consolidating platforms, or even standardizing technologies, which in turn then lowers maintenance costs and simplifies operations. So it enables clearer alignment between these business goals on the one hand and technology investments, ensuring, of course, the money is spent on the right capabilities and that generally advance strategic outcomes rather than on creating redundant initiatives. Now, communicating the value of enterprise architecture to executives, like we just discussed, that is challenging because the benefits often materialize indirectly over long horizons and through prevention of problems rather than creation of immediately visible outcomes. And of course, business leaders, as is their job, tend to focus on revenue, on risk, on operational performance, while enterprise architecture sometimes get framed in technical language and fails to connect with those priorities. So it can also be misunderstood as bureaucracy or documentation heavy rather than a strategic capability. Now, to formulate a compelling value proposition that I think generally supports strategy, portfolio management, project delivery, and solution design, the four that you just mentioned, I think that the narrative must connect architectural work directly to the organization's most important goals. So the most effective value propositions will describe how EA improves strategically aligned agility by clarifying future state capabilities and roadmaps, how it optimizes, let's say, portfolio investments by exposing dependencies and redundancies, or how it can accelerate project delivery by offering guidance that eliminates rework, improves solution coherence. So instead of positioning enterprise architecture as this gatekeeper or sometimes even called document producer, it helps to present it as a partner that reduces uncertainty for executives, that provides decision-ready insights for portfolio leaders and equips project teams with practical tools and even standards that will make their work faster and easier. So the value proposition should describe the architectural function or capability as this integrator that actually, how do you say that, bridges strategy with execution, ensuring that every project contributes to building the capabilities that are needed for the future. So I think ultimately the most persuasive message is one that shows enterprise architecture not as this abstract discipline, but as a mechanism through which the organization can make better decisions, it can deliver change with more speed and less waste, and maintain coherence as it grows and adapts.
Excellent. Yeah, and that's why we share the same passion, and that's why we call it here the newsletter that I create this year. It's named Architecting Change. So at the end, it's what you are describing is more than the method and the framework and the artifacts and so forth. Is how can we architect change in the organization in the correct way, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. So you need to have this solid understanding of the foundation of what enterprise architecture entails. But there's also the challenge of how to deliver that message to the organization, to the board or the directors or even senior management in your organization. Yeah. Knowing the theory is one thing, but knowing how to apply it practical and pragmatic way so that people will actually see it as an enabler instead of something that holds them back. That's the real challenge.
Yeah, totally agree, Eric. So just to close our conversation, Eric, what will be your recommendation or advice for practitioners that maybe they have some years in the practice of enterprise architecture? What will you recommend them, let's say, to be more strategic rather than technical? So what would be your recommendation?
I think it's a combination of the things that I just mentioned. I am a strong believer of, as an enterprise architect, of getting an organization or helping an organization get to this foundational architecture level. So at least get to this level 1 maturity, if you will, for your organization, and have the right stakeholders in your organization recognize that it exists, and then move forward from there. It's also important to focus on the things from an enterprise architecture perspective that will help the organization realize their strategy. So it's important to look at the strategy from this EA perspective and try to assist the organization in showing them what needs to change, what architectural change needs to happen within the organization to help the organization move forward. So you should really take on the role of this, maybe let's call it an organizational enabler, to show the organization how they can realize what they set out to do. And I believe, and that's also based on a few years of experience, that if we keep on calling it either enterprise architecture or architecture in general, we will always have this link with solution architecture, like you pointed out at the beginning of our conversation. So I think if we were to focus more on demonstrating how we can create value for an organization and help them move along in realizing their strategy, and refrain from using the word architecture, but focus on the value creation, I think that will allow us to help the organization move forward. So I think that's where the focus should be. Create a solid foundation of the enterprise architecture and then show the added value that our profession can bring to the table.
Agreed. Thank you, Eric. It was an amazing conversation. So thank you again, Eric, for being with us, being with the Architecting Change community, for having some words about the benefits and the challenges that we have ahead of us. So have you ever been in Mexico, Eric?
I've never been to Mexico. No. I would love to go to visit Mexico, but yeah,
Really?
of course, like all things, there has to be this opening or opportunity to do so. And I must tell you that this should stay between you and me. I am not this big fan of airplanes, right? So flying from Europe to Mexico is about maybe 10, 11 hours.
10 hours, yeah.
That will be a real challenge for me. But something I've also flown to China, so it's not something that I will never overcome. But who knows? Maybe there will be an opportunity to do so in the future.
Maybe next year.
Who knows?
Thank you, Eric. It was an amazing conversation. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. Thank you for writing this book. It's amazing. I highly recommend it for seasoned enterprise architects or practitioners. And tell us just a little bit more about your next book. What is it about?
Yeah, the next book is called Mastering the TOGAF Standard. It's all about, as the title already kind of gives away, the TOGAF framework. And I think the general idea, what I wanted to achieve, is to tell the readers or to take them on this journey on how to actually apply the framework. So the TOGAF standard on itself, it does a great job of describing what you need to do in order to realize an enterprise architect, but it doesn't give you all these examples or practical examples of how to actually do it. And that's what I added to this second book. So it describes how to interpret the framework and how to apply it in practice. And I have a few copies of the book laying here. It is, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
it is quite a large book, but it will demonstrate in the same way that the first book does, the same practical and pragmatic approach on how to apply the TOGAF standard. So I'm hoping this will be a must-read for TOGAF practitioners as well.
Excellent. So thank you again, Eric, for having these conversations, and let's keep in touch so
Absolutely.
we can share our progress and our passion about architecting change in the organizations.
Absolutely. Let's do that. It's been my pleasure to join you for this session. I hope that the viewers will enjoy and the listeners will enjoy what we discussed today. And yeah, absolutely. We should stay in touch and maybe see if there's an opportunity for us to get together and talk some more about this great profession.
For sure. Thank you, Eric. Thank you again.
Yes, thanks.